Welcome everybody to another edition of Hot Program. I'm your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. And now a man who thinks he wouldn't feel fat if he was in zero gravity, a man who lost 11 pounds in a week, a man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I'm doing very well, Pocket Locker. How
Con-
about yourself?
Good, good. Congrats on the weight loss. I need to do the same.
Well, I was doing about 65 hours worth of work in my yard and skipping meals that got me there.
Oh, all right.
And being dehydrated in the desert heat and finally taking the pill that yanks the water out of my body. So it was a concerted effort.
Yeah, that's definitely it's definitely the way to be. Hey, none of us are getting any younger, so all of us need to be getting more health conscious and active.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm borrow this phrase from someone else, but I'm aging like a banana. That's me. Old and soft. It's just
That's
but
funny.
great for banana bread, I guess.
All right, thanks to everybody, the early birds that are in the chat. I see
No, thank you.
Ryan and PC and look at the trees. And who else we got in here? Kyle and Carrie Ann. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for coming in and getting us started. All right, let's jump into today's topic so we have plenty of time. So what we're gonna be reviewing is a video from the I've Had It podcast news. Now, I have very mixed emotions about the show. Um, I like the show. I like the ladies that host it. Um, I agree with them on pretty much all of their stances on issues. So it's not that we have necessarily political disagreements. It is also not a disagreement necessarily about tone, which is, or for the most part, um, they've become really popular recently, not just
Hmm.
because they they do a good podcast and they're good at critiquing the
The orange
the
one.
the Trump movement, but I would say they're also very popular because of the tone they take. That they're not afraid to call MAGA, a bunch of limp dick beta cucks, and I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty much their way.
what bothers me is actually not even them. It's like most other things, y'all. We really do need to have a broader critique of the moment that we find ourselves in. And I get frustrated feeling like people get celebrated for saying things and coming out in a certain way. I shouldn't use the term coming out. They for presenting a certain way, and it feels like back to that conversation about who gets to present that way and be rewarded for it. So it feels like, again, a lot of us smaller creators, we've been taking that tone with these people. We've been on this tip about being direct and aggressive with these people. And we are constantly shunned, ostracized, told we're a woke mob, told we're canceling people, told we're divisive, told that we're ruining communities. Okay. But when middle-aged white ladies say it, people receive it very differently. And everybody's like hair on fire, super excited. Let's give them the Nobel Peace Prize because they'll say things that apparently when Uncle Bobby says it, he might lose his channel. So, okay. So, but that's not them. Like, they're cool. It's just sort of like it just sucks to feel like, again, only certain people can get celebrated for having a certain attitude. But that's not neither here nor there. Where the reason all of that matters for today's conversation is because I want people to notice that even in this moment where they're taking down closeted LGBTQ people on the right, on MAGA, they do so in a way that stops short of criticizing Christianity. Largely, they are both from. No, one of them I think grew up in like an atheist household, and the
Yeah,
other one
Jennifer
grew
did.
up. Yeah, and the other one grew up. The one on the. I guess if I pull this up here, the one on the left here grew up in an atheist home, and the one on the
Hmm.
right grew up in a very, very religious home.
Yes, she's still religious as far as I know.
Yes, I think so. And that is my real issue here. And and it is not to be disrespectful on an interpersonal level to Christians on the left. But I would respectfully apologize to Christians on the left and say, sorry, it's not about you right now.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I know you would love to stay comfortable in your Christian identity, but right now we have to fight against a very specific form of fascism. It is a religiously motivated fascism, and it is in particular a white Christian fascism. And we sometimes say a little bit too much about like white evangelical, because in reality it's become a broader coalition of uh of religions. It's, you know, many of these people now are Catholic, many of these people now are Mormon. You know, they're sort of a broad coalition of um Christian movements that participate in this whole thing. And for me personally, I just can't really feel like anybody on the left is really a badass or is really taking it to MAGA if you are not willing to have the broader critique of religion. First off, let me say, I think that critiquing religion is the beginning of religion. It's sorry, the beginning of critical thinking. It's the beginning of skepticism, but it's also the most foundational thing. If you are a critical thinker about everything under the world, if you need rational arguments that make sense and connect to each other and good evidence for everything in your life, but you are willing to swallow whole cloth a humanoid being that existed before the universe spoke the universe into existence, and a Jew had to die 2,000 years ago and be dead 3 days for your sin to save us from his own plan. That and you're overlooking, all of the murder and genocide and slavery and hatred and all of that stuff that we talk about on this channel quite regularly when it comes to the Bible. I'm just sorry, like you didn't make it. You didn't make the cut. It's probably not your fault. It's probably not your fault. You probably grew up in this American culture, and Christianity was not something you could question or challenge. And so you find yourself 45, 50 years old. Maybe you left, some super hardcore MAGA right wing racist Christianity, and now you've moved on to like a non-denominational, somewhat more mixed congregation, like love everybody and serve the community Christianity. Like, cool. Like you've been on a personal journey, and that personal journey has absolutely led you to make some improvements in your life, and I'm very happy for you. But this ain't gonna cut it. This ain't gonna cut it, gang. And a lot of us just have to have the courage of our convictions. You cannot fight against something that is destroying the lives of others. Have a situation where the basis of that persecution is something that is simply not true. And then sort of eat around the edges and say, hey, we can fight against this thing and we can fight to save people, but let's do so without addressing whether or not this thing is true. As soon as you start to do that, you've already lost, you've already been manipulated, you're already dealing with narcissistic religious tendency, and you are cowering to the mask. You're saying, I really don't want to make those people uncomfortable. I really don't want to have to be uncomfortable. So let's find some other way to combat this. I'm sorry, y'all. If I were to accuse you of doing something terrible and then say, now here comes the pain as a result of that thing that I'm accusing you of doing, and that thing is not true, that's all that would matter to you. That is all. You would be getting a lawyer. You'd be taking me to court. Why? Because no one wants to face consequences for something that is not true. If I fire you, my one black friend, because you show up late to work 3 days a week, every week, and I'm so fucking sick of it, I just say you're done. You're done. You came in late 4 days this week. You will never receive a paycheck from here again. Please go home. You're done. Mm-hmm. If it turns out that you show up to work on time every day and have the punch cards to prove it, you are not going to accept this. You're not gonna sit around and say, oh, well, it's okay. I understand. You believe I'm late all the time. And since you sincerely think I'm late, I guess it's okay that I'm gonna get kicked out of my house.
Mm-hmm. No, my lawyer will take care of it.
Yeah, my lawyer will take care of it. Why? Because the truth matters.
It does.
And I'm sorry, but if you're watching other people be persecuted and it's behind something that isn't true, and you can't turn to the persecutors and say, I know you think you're doing a good thing, but the very motivation for your behavior is something that is not true. And since people are being harmed behind this thing that is not true, it is more important that we address the truth of the issue so that we can stop the oppression of these people than it is to make the people who don't want to hear this comfortable. Your comfort is not the priority when somebody else is suffering. And further, your comfort cannot be the priority when your comfort relies on something that is not true. Now, if we are to be grown adults who are trying to work together to establish a better world that works for all of us and allows us to work together, we have to be able to have that conversation sincerely. And it is a problem if we are going to make heroes out of commentators and media people on the left. I think I'm happy to see people on the left growing. I want to see them making money. I want to see them having a healthier media ecosystem, because all of those things are necessary as part of this very real fight against fascism that we find ourselves in the middle of. But those of us that are consuming this stuff have to be critical and have to demand more and say, we are fighting Christian religious fascism. And I don't see how we're going to do that if we're not going to fight against the fact that none of this is true to begin with. So that's the setup for today. And of course, I'm going to let my one black friend get in here before we get started.
I can't agree with you entirely. I can be critical in a different way. Um, it seems like some conservative Christians, I mean politically conservative, are unwilling to call out the other side for not actually, the ones who aren't conservatives, right? The ones who are, as Jesus would call them, actual Christians, are afraid to call out the conservatives for, hey, look, why are you persecuting all these people in your country who came there to have a better life? Why are you doing that? I said not to. The Bible says not to. Why are you complaining about all these people who can't feed themselves or house themselves and need help? I said not to. I said you take care of those people. Why are you taking benefits, medical benefits away from, and just goes on. And Jesus, we can see where Jesus literally gave the opposite example. He's not taking things away from people other than their sins. He's providing help where it's needed. He's standing in the gap as opposed to widening it. And yet there are people who will stand up on the conservative side and likely on the Democratic side too, and say, well, Jesus was wrong. Again, we had it in an episode. Where are you getting all these liberal talking points? A minister was asked that. This is in the effing Bible. It's right there in print for everybody who has one to see. But what's being happened, and people aren't aware of this, is they are being used. Their faith is a tool for the powerful to get their way and essentially do the exact opposite
But I think that's
of what
why
Jesus is commanding.
but I think that's why we have to just stop playing this game. I try to be honest. It feels very childish at this point. Jesus is not God. And so even as a means to get adults to behave better, me personally, huge mistake to go to Jesus. Huge mistake to go to Jesus. Because number one, that is what makes them suckers. Like you said it really well, like that people use these people and they use their faith to manipulate these people.
That's
And
right,
so
they
a lot
do.
of times we think, okay, well, I got an idea. If we're gonna use people's faith to manipulate them, let's go into the Bible. Let's look at all the great things Jesus said. Love your neighbor. Don't stone that woman to death. Yeah, the tax collector's kind of paying taxes kind of sucks, but the tax collector's just doing his job, whatever. And let's use that to motivate people to behave better. Well, number one, that doesn't work for me because number one, it's not true. Jesus wasn't God. And so I don't think he should be worshipped and put up on that stance. And you can't do one without the other. Right? Like
Can I
if I say to you, like, read some MLK letters and think about following some stuff he said, nobody thinks he's God. You're not being asked to worship him. You're just being asked to like read his ideas and evaluate them. How could I put Jesus forward as an example without reinforcing people's faith?
You that's a tough one, Pocket Locker. I think you may have asked for something that's extremely difficult. So, like yourself, I think I go a step further than you. I don't think Jesus was real at all. I think he was fictional. And I've gone super critical with that. When I read the Gospels, it's clearly like a middle school or high school level writing exercise where people were given a set of parameters. You have to have these story points, but you can all write different stories. But these are the story points I want you to be consistent with. And when you're done, it feels like truth, right? They did really well, and other people, as we know historically, enhanced what is in the Gospels. So at the core, I believe it's all made up. All made up. It doesn't mean you can't have good lessons in it, right? The woman taken in adultery, one of the best examples in the whole Bible of looking at your own actions before judging other people,
So I would say
right?
it
But
does.
hold on,
Go ahead. All
let
right,
me
go
just
ahead, go
say
ahead.
this. Its its power is in that often it is relatable. It is a guide when people don't know what to do with themselves. How should I direct my life? What should I do? Who am I really? How do I get what I want out of life? It is great for that if it's a resource you have, right? If it's a book on a shelf some darn where, if you've been sitting in those Sunday school courses for decades, if you've been going to church for decades, it is your reference for a lot of, it is their reference, not yours, for a lot of those people of what to do. So in a way, since it has been reliable, and well, to some degree, because you can pray for $1 million. There's not a lot of millionaires going to church that have prayed for money. They just don't have it still. Um, but the idea that they're going to get what they need from God, in my opinion, it's poorly placed faith. You go out there and you work for it, and you might get it. You might not, but you go out there and you work for it. There's no God poofing a new car into your garage. And if you get one, you can thank God for it. But are there payments? Well, if they're payments, it's not God, it's you.
So
You did that.
so this is what I encourage people in our audience to be thinking about, because ultimately we do these shows to influence each other in our audience. I don't know the ladies at iHip News, and they will probably never see my show. So this is a conversation for us to think about amongst ourselves. But this is everything you mentioned to me is why we can't do this anymore. Um, and I mean this sincerely. Like, what I am trying to think through is how to behave and do things differently going forward. And I think we all owe it to ourselves to consider that possibility.
Mhm.
And for me, the the sort of collaborating with a more liberal flavor of Christianity has just not worked. And the problems I see are really some of the things you mentioned. So first off, I don't think you can go to the Bible and use it as an example of some good lessons and teachings and stuff. Um, some of this I feel like should go without saying, but I have to say it because
Say it.
when you're broadcasting, people take everything out of your mouth so literally. But I do
Mhm.
understand at some surface level that many, many, many stories that have great moral lessons or moral heroes and characters also contain horrible things, right? So you can have a story of a people being repressed, enslaved, genocided, R worded, all of that stuff. Um, and really it's a superhero story, right? And then Superman comes and saves the oppressed and da 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 da, right? So you can look at that story and say, well, this story contains genocide and war and all these terrible anti-humane things, um, and it has a hero, and you're fine with that, but I'm saying that it's not okay to do that with the Bible. And I would say, yes, absolutely. That's absolutely 100,000% what I'm saying. Why? Number one, when it's a fictional movie or story, we know that already. We already know that this is just a movie. It's just a story.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of the whole thing typically then is the depiction of the hero, and the hero saving the people from all of this or stopping the big bad or whatever it is. So there's no moral ambiguity here, right? It's literally the purpose of the fiction is to do that. The other thing is, when it's nonfiction and that happens, this very real, world leader who, people have, positive feelings about, also has this sort of negative past, and they did all these terrible things that you didn't learn about in school or whatever. Even then, at least it's a true story. It's just about a person, and again, we're just trying to accurately assess and understand the history. The problem when you get into the Bible is that it's a religious text, so you can't just enforce it like, oh, well, yeah, I do think it's a cool story and it's got a couple of cool lessons in it. As soon as you do that, you are validating it as the holy religious sacred text that should govern everybody's life. And if we're honest with ourselves,
I
Christians.
disagree. Finish your point. I just
No,
have to say I disagree.
I know you can do it, my one black friend. What I'm saying is it's not something we can do socially as a strategy. Like, I think we're making the mistake of trying to beat the enemy using their playbook. The other problem I have with it is,
which can be done.
It can be done, but I don't think it can be done with the Bible. The problem with the Bible is the Bible. When you say love your neighbor, Jesus wouldn't judge the woman in adultery and da 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 da. Okay, somebody else is going to come along and say the stoning of heathens, biblical. The taking of other people's lands, biblical. The marrying of young underage women that you take as booty from your conquest, biblical. Slavery, biblical. So that's where I say no, because if I go to something else and say that this thing is a good moral story, I don't have to wrestle with that. And I think you are lending credibility to, quote unquote, there's good in the Bible, and you have to be honest. Maybe you, as a very educated person, can compartmentalize that. But what we have to be honest about is the average believer isn't going to be that nuanced. If you endorse, oh, Jesus said some good things, all they heard was my perfect Lord and Savior Jesus is amazing, and even you have to admit it. They're not going to hear, oh, the Bible's probably not literally true, there isn't really a God, but there are some great humanistic secular lessons in there, and I'd be happy to talk to you and make common ground off of these secular principles that are found in the Bible. Like, when we say that, we are giving ourselves what I feel like is a comfortable delusion. We are lying to ourselves about how this really goes. The other thing is, again, it's not true. And so when you come to people and say, well, hey, let's look to the Bible and look to what Jesus said and da da da, you're you're reiterating it for them as though it was true. And so this is the thing. Once that's the framework, the other side feels perfectly justified then in, hey, you said you want to play the Jesus game. Let's go to the Bible. And they're going to go and find the terrible, horrible things every single time. So at some point, the
Okay.
rest of us just have to say, like, this isn't true. And saying something isn't true is our most powerful option when the consequences are so high.
Okay. So I'm in the middle of Pocket Locker knows this. Many of our regular audience members knows this. You've heard me for months talk about selling my house. We're not even finished packing. It's been 5 months. Packing should be done. So I finally got some pros in there that I had to pay, and they're getting it done. I'm getting pictures constantly. I have right now, this is happening. I have friends show up to pitch in and help, and I'm being asked by my wife, what should they be doing? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Packing. That's it. Get everything out of there. So now I'm directing 5 people from here while I'm trying to do a podcast. That's ridiculous. What I get from listening to you is I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm expecting everybody to know what to do as if they were me doing it. So I guess I need to make some freaking instructions on how to do this. So here's what's going on. Here's why I say it's a viable thing to do. Though in my next breath I can in my first breath I can say, hey, there are some redeemable things in the Bible. There's some good stuff in there that Christians can adhere to, Jewish people can adhere to, and a regular everyday garden variety atheist is probably doing already. I can't negate the fact that there are horrible, disgusting, anti-humane things in the Bible. I can point those out. They are not useful when I'm trying to get those people to not discriminate against people who are of a different sexual preference or ethnicity or are poor or have some sort of disability or so on. It is not useful for me to bring up the stuff that I would bring up if I'm trying to show them why their religion is wrong. If I can use what is what they love about it, right? To get them to do things they are not doing that I appreciate about it, then I need to do that. I
But
can
then you
save the
two are
conver
using their
Hold
religion
on,
to
hold on.
manipulate them. Go ahead.
Absolutely. You have heard me say from virtually day one on Hot Program, religion is useful. That's what it's for. That's what it's for if you are an outsider, right? Because and everyone is an outsider. Why? Because for as far as Christians go, because Christianity, what do they keep telling us? Is not a religion. It is a personal relationship. Well, if that's true, then everyone else is outside of your relationship with Jesus, if you got one, or with God, if you got one.
If I knew you were
Everyone
doing
else
this
is
to
an
me, I would
outsider.
hate you.
You
I
would
would
hate
hate you.
me?
Yes, yes. I because as a
It's a very
Christian,
short line.
if I when I was a Christian, I wanted the truth. I get the thing that some people are too far gone, but let's then have an honest discourse amongst ourselves and say some people in our lives are too far gone. This is how we handle the people in our life that are too far gone. And then let's admit that there is a certain paternalism to that. That there is a
Can I? Can
certain,
I?
hate to say it, like they just don't have the education or the lived experience to really handle. So I've got to deal with them with these Christian kid gloves.
Pause.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Pause. Pause.
Go ahead.
You need to break down what you are saying. Not stop saying it. You need to break it down. You said something that I find beautiful. You said when you were a Christian, you wanted the truth. Okay. I would say to any Christian who feels that way, start at the beginning of the Bible. Read the whole thing. There are
No, it's
people who've
sorry,
been
but
Christians.
I'm saying for but a
Well,
lot of them it
let me
can't.
just let me finish. Let me finish. We have a high level literacy in America, in the United States. So just start in the first few pages. You're going to find that they got when the sun was created, they got that wrong. You're going to find there's no metal sky. It says there's a metal sky dome surrounding the earth. They got that wrong. There's tons of things in the first few pages the Bible gets wrong. And I would say, if you are a Christian, you are listening, you have to have, as Pocket Locker wanted the truth, you have to realize that the Bible that you're holding in your hands as you read it gets things wrong. It gets morality wrong with slavery. It gets morality wrong with selling your children, selling your effing children. It gets morality wrong with that. It gets morality wrong with how to treat people from other countries some of the time. Respecting the stranger, taking care of the stranger, the person from a foreign country while they're in their country. It gets that both right and wrong. That's the truth. The Old Testament, it can get it wrong because it says go ahead and steal land from these people over here. We're seeing that happen in real time in Gaza right now, right? In Israel right now. It's happening in real time. They are stealing other people's land and people are cheering them on, sending them money and bombs so they can keep doing it. That is utterly disgusting. It is utterly
But
disgusting
again, but
because we wouldn't want them
who's
doing that
doing
here.
it? But who's doing it? It's mostly what I'm getting at is it's Christians doing it. It is mostly Christians doing it. So this is why this is all such a.
Okay,
Here's the other thing.
go
I
ahead.
think when you encourage these Christians with the good stuff, you are literally making them the suckers. The other ones, what people need to do now is they need to see through Christianity. What happens is right now the powerful people who know it's all BS, they don't care. They're gonna do what they want to do. Donald Trump and his cronies, they love to use Christianity.
Yes, they do.
What we need to do is go to the Christians that back to and say, hey, look, there's nothing to that. That's a bunch of nonsense. Because right now they're the suckers that think they have to stay stuck in Christianity. They have to go along with Christianity. They have to endorse what it is that Christians say should be going on, and instead of going to them and saying, hey, I hate to break it to you, but this stuff really isn't true, and what are you trying to figure out? Most people on the left, I hate to break this to people, they agree with the right. They just don't want the same energy, and maybe they don't have the same energy in terms of voting and policy, but they have the same beliefs. When you have people on the right who are trying to take away gay marriage again because we're just gonna keep revisiting things now because we're stuck in a loop. um when they go to do that, for them, it's going to be based in the Bible. For a man to lie with man is an abomination. Surely they shall be put to death. If that's not, I think everybody in the world has some serious self-examination to do. If for a man to lie with man is an abomination, surely they shall both be put to death. If that is not enough for you to say, leave that Bible alone, you've got some serious soul searching to do.
Okay, can I address that real quick?
Sure.
All right. So if I'm sitting down and I'm having a discussion with Christians about this is one of those things I would bring up where I think the Bible is wrong, right? People loving each other, and if they're age appropriate, why are we having issues with that? Especially in most cases, if that's not your husband, what are you saying? Like, why do you even have an opinion about it? I go to Ezekiel. This is my stick pocket locker. If I have to If I have to show somebody why their faith in this book is wrong, or their belief on a particular social issue is wrong, I come right to Ezekiel, Ezekiel chapter 20. I almost don't need anything else. I don't need it to say anything else almost. Where God says in Ezekiel 20:24, because they had not executed my judgments, but had promised, but had despised my statutes and had polluted my Sabbaths, and their eyes were after their father's idol. Wherefore I gave them statutes that were not good, and judgments whereby they should not live. And then I ask the question, I say, this is God saying he gave the Israelites statutes that they should not live by, right? He told them, I want you to follow these rules, but the rules are how they should not live. They were not good. How do you know that a person being a homosexual and you stoning them to death because they love someone you didn't approve of is wrong? How do you know it's wrong? He's telling you he gave them crappy rules to live by. And I give them the space to think. You
That
because a modern person, right? People, you learn some of your preferences. Like, I don't like this, I like that. You learn those things. And sometimes, and I've seen this again and again with religious people, the opinions they hold were handed to them, and not, they didn't get those opinions through living. They didn't get those opinions through their relationships, their friendships, and such. They got it because somebody standing in front of them told them. They got it because that
what I
brother
think is you're
told them.
conflicted. It sounds like you're conflicted, and I think because of your relationships. I think when you have good relationships with Christians, you think the Bible is good to be used to reinforce the things that already make them good. And when you're dealing with a Christian who you don't agree with, and you're debunking Christianity, um, then you are able to use the Bible effectively to show them essentially that the Bible's silly. Um, I don't have a problem
Or
with using
worse,
the I don't have a yeah I don't have a problem with using the Bible to debunk the Bible. But what I do think is bad is to because you're confusing me. I'd be confused, right? Because if I'm the good Christian in your life, you're going and you're saying, oh well, Jesus did say to do this and that and this and that, and I'm going, yeah, I'm doing this and that and this and that, and then you're going, that's great, and then I'm like, well, I pulled up your Facebook, and then I saw telling this other guy why the Bible is bunk. I just think when it comes to there's almost a Venn diagram I think people need to do of the believers in your life. You, you you have to have a certain overlap to be effective with these people. You have to be sort of a skeptic or a non-believer, um, but you also have to be close enough to that person to care about them. That's why I feel like it's a problem. It's because most people in most believers' lives are also believers. Most of the people who are not believers or have a different belief system, or have thoughts that are critical to them, don't care enough about them to go there. If you are one of my mother's former coworkers or whatever, and you're Jewish or you're Muslim and you think Christianity is bullshit, you're just happy that my mom's a pleasant Christian to work alongside of. And if she's your boss, you sure as hell aren't going to ruffle those feathers. So it's not enough for those people to take an inventory of who they have in their lives that thinks differently than they do. It has to be who thinks differently, who in their life thinks differently enough, meaningfully. Number two has to be who is then close enough and invested enough in them to care about what they believe and how they live, to actually challenge them. So the relationship has to be there. And then number three, the person has to be an effective communicator. If I'm a ardent atheist and I want to talk to my mom about it, but I'm a shit communicator and I'm not actually good at talking about atheism, it doesn't matter. So when I say there's a disappointment in the people in our space to think about. It's different, and I'm just saying, I'm just reiterating this moment about fun to make the point that I've made to the audience before, which is you might be the only person in that believer's life who fits the bill, meaning you are the person in their life who is the most likely, if their faith is ever going to be challenged, it is most likely to come from you. Doesn't
I'm
mean it's
happily
easy.
that person
Yeah.
100% of the time.
But the thing is, but then you got to do it. And that's my point. If you're that person, but then you as that person go, I don't want to make them uncomfortable. They're too far gone and they're a super Christian and they're committed to dying a Christian. Then you say hands off, or you say, well, fine, I'll just go to using the good parts of the Bible. Yes, I agree with loving your neighbor. I agree with not stealing. I agree with not murdering. And then they're never gonna get challenged.
All right, I need you to define what does too far gone mean. I think you might have just defined it,
So too
but
far gone.
could you
Yeah, no,
please
it's
put
a
that by
it's a
itself?
it's a it's kind of a cliche, and it's a bit of internet lingo that we use in these spaces a lot in political
Mhm.
conversations. But too far gone doesn't necessarily mean religion. It just means when a person has an ideology or something, and basically they're broken. Basically they're brainwashed, and they cannot be sort of brought back to reality through normal means. Um, it to, and that's the problem we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with the problem of the religion that's practiced in America is incredibly narcissistic. It is incredibly like, my religion is my culture and my identity, and how dare you challenge it, right? And so it it is a thing where what I'm getting at is most people above a certain age who are still religious are likely too far gone, or
Mhm.
they're at least pretending to be too far gone.
Pretending to
Now, the
be.
problem is on the left, on our side, we want to remain comfortable. So then we don't call out the Christianity. We're not willing to put people's feet to the fire. Some of it is strategic. I get it, because people are not ready to hear Christianity be challenged. But when that happens, we now can never know who is too far gone versus who has not been given the opportunity to see through this thing and come over to the right side. And again, we have to have the courage of our convictions. I would take it here. I would take it. Here's where I would really take it, my friend. And this is not going to be something a lot of people like. In some sense, it is my obligation, not in every single circumstance in my life, but for the most part, to make believers uncomfortable about their faith. And I would say that that is the case for a lot of us. And here's why: because you don't believe. That's it. What I mean by that is this. A lot of this stuff we're doing, we are putting other people on a pedestal higher than ourselves. When we treat ourselves as whole and with full integrity, I'm just here. And I have the obligation to be my full, genuine self that I would expect of anybody else. So if you bring up the conversation of religion in my presence, now, again, if I find myself in a legal situation where I can't say what I really think, or professional situation where I can't say what I really think, or we're all around a dying family member's bed. I'm not saying you got to be, a weirdo about it.
Yeah,
But
keep
what
it
I
100, Jay. So and so's dying.
No, I don't have anybody right now. No, but what I don't like is I don't like when I try to really hammer home where I think we should be, and then people
Yeah,
put out these wild and out ass examples, and I'm just like, of course there's exceptions, of course there's time and place to consider. But what I'm getting at is a lot of us have failed to have the courage of our convictions. We have failed to bring an
that is
authentic voice to
true.
these conversations and say, no, this is all BS, and to say that, like, look, I'm not saying that to attack anybody. I'm saying that because that's how I really feel. I'm saying the same way you get to say I love Jesus, and yeah, I was in a really hardcore fundamentalist, white supremacist MAGA cult, but now I left, and now I go to a non-denominational church, and we all love, and we provide backpacks, and we have a soup kitchen. I should say, okay, I'm really glad you're doing all those things in the community, but I got to be honest with you. I don't think Christianity is true. And I think your church and all those good things you are doing, you are reifying the power, prestige, and authority of Christianity in our society. And it is accelerating and exacerbating all of the problems Christianity is causing. So that's the real issue at the end of the day, is
All
all of
right,
those.
pause, pause,
Go
pause,
ahead, go
pause,
ahead.
pause, 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 please. Based on what you just said, are you saying that any of these good actions, right, good non-denominational actions, give oxygen to the people who are doing it wrong,
A
right? It
hundred,
makes them look good
yes,
too. Is that what you're
yes,
saying?
yes. And
Okay. And
also it's in
you'd rather strip away the religious label from the good actions because for us, the religion isn't true. Um, and this is just altruism. This is people coming together saying, hey, we need to make a difference in the lives of other people, and we want to. So we're going to actively band together
woo,
and do some things that are
oh,
lovely.
oh, you hit on it, but you don't even know. Let's go there now.
All
Let's
right.
talk about let's talk
Because
about
I've done that.
altruism,
I've
because
done
this
that without
really
the.
this
I
really
didn't need
talks
the,
about.
to put it in Jessie J terms, I didn't need the Christ tag to do that. She didn't need the price tag. I didn't need the Christ tag. Just doing good for the sake of goodness.
All
So
right,
go ahead, Parker
so
Walker.
this is gonna be something. I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out the best way to show this. I'm like, should I draw? Like, should I draw? So I need everybody to imagine a Punnett square. All right, hang on. I'm creating a thing.
Not everyone will remember what a Punnett square
I
is.
know. That's why I'm trying to
Okay.
do this thing. Draw. Okay, I got to draw. I got my draw tool. Hang on. Let's see if I can get artsy fartsy real quick here.
Think of a
Um,
square divided into four equal parts.
let's all right, here's
It's
the
mint your
window.
spreadsheet.
All right. Now hopefully you guys can see that. All right. So the Punnett square is, oh my god, that is the worst line ever. Let's undo that.
Just keep going. Don't judge yourself. Just keep going.
There's like a
Use Microsoft
line.
Excel, Jay. Use
There's like a
Microsoft
shape
Excel.
thing. All right, look. So look, let's do this. All right, that looks like a lot better. All right, there's a thing. All right, let's do another one of those things.
Now draw a box
All
that
right,
you
here
can
we
see
go.
through. Okay, or
Here we
not.
go. All right. And we're going to let's just do some text boxes. That way they're good. Let's say others over here, I think is the way this works. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I know what I'm doing now. Um, and then we've got like self over here. Okay. And then the same thing, I think. let's see if this works. I actually have this in my notebook because I did this in my class. Others. Oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. Okay, hang on a sec. Don't worry, y'all. Y'all see where this is going in a sec. Very important. This is gonna be one of the best things we've done on this channel. All right. So others is gonna go here. Self is gonna go here. And then we're gonna do little tiny. This is a minus. Insert text box. This is a plus. Okay. Down here, go away. This is a minus. And this is a plus. All right. So first thing to do is think about this like this vertical line says self on top of it, right? And so over here is a plus. Think about a number line, positive to the right, negative to the left, right? This horizontal line is for others, and same thing. You have it should be positive up top and negative down at the bottom. I drew these twice and they're kind of confusing. All right, so here's where what we're getting at. All right, I'm gonna draw some big words here. Here's cooperation. Okay. Down here is what we would call selfishness. Over here is what we would call spite. God damn it, give me a text box. And up here is what we would call altruism. All right. Now, why did I draw you all this? This is a Punnett square of behavior. It's how we model behavioral ecology, and we think about a behavior in terms of the thing that's behaving. We call that the self, and the effect on others, right? And so simply, to put it simply, if you have behavior that benefits you, it's positive to you, and it's a positive to others, right? So it's on this, it's over here in this positive space. We call that cooperation. I do something that benefits me, it benefits my one black friend. We both do it together. We call that cooperation. Down here, if something is, I think I have the axes. I might have the axes backwards. Yeah, so this is something that's positive for the self, but negative for others. We call that selfish. I probably got the axes wrong, but the Punnett square is right, so who cares? All right. So let me look at this damn thing. Whatever. It's fine. Why do I put this in the right space? It's got to be self, positive, negative for others. Why did I put this here? I think I did the axes wrong. Yeah, because it should be positive for you and negative for them. All right, anyway, now over here, if something is negative for you and negative for others, we call that spitefulness, right? That is like, it's gonna harm me, but it's gonna take out the other person, right? Like, I hate my neighbor, I'm gonna drive my car through their driveway. Like, I will destroy their driveway. I will also ruin my car. I might also end up in jail, but I'm going to ruin their day, right? So we call that spiteful behavior. Altruism is a very particular form of behavior, and it's only considered altruism if it's negative to the self but positive to the others, right? The reason that's actually why this is so important. This is so important because scientists had to literally figure out how altruism evolves. If you think about natural selection, altruism doesn't make any sense. Why would you do something that hurts you, right? To benefit others when supposedly like that would harm your fitness, right? The answer is what we call kin selection and basically relatedness, right? I will do things for others if there's like basically an indirect benefit to my lineage or whatever, right? And this explains why people are more likely to make sacrifices for their children than they are for their nieces and their nephews, or why people are more likely to make sacrifices for their grandchildren than they are for some random stranger on the street. That relatedness and the difference in relatedness actually serves a function of predicting how likely we are to be altruistic. All right. Now, why did I bring all that up in this context? Well, the reason is actually quite straightforward. Let me get our setup back. Christians aren't being altruistic. And I need people to understand when I say this, I'm not being, when you do the backpack thing, but you do it so people will come to church on Sunday, and ultimately it also helps your church justify not paying taxes. That's what bothers me, because you're not actually being altruistic. You have an ulterior motive and you are taking advantage of people. If you really wanted to impress me, just give away the backpacks. If you really wanted to impress me, have the soup kitchen not on the church grounds, but across the street from the church or around the corner from the church, have nothing to do with the church, and don't be, promoting the church in the soup kitchen. Because if you were really part of this whole thing, you would understand that not only do I think it's not good, I think it's bad. When we think of, listen, everybody needs, if you need a car, chances are somebody had to sell you that car. Be it a parent, a neighbor, a friend, or like most of us, a car dealership. Now, we all know that you can have somebody that gives you a certain value or a certain car. They also give you a great shopping experience, and everything's fine. But we feel a certain type of way about the quote unquote dirty used car salesman who sells us some piece of junk at a cost way more than it's worth. And the only reason they got over on us was because they found out we were vulnerable. They found out we had some financial vulnerabilities, right? And then they buttered us up and gave us cookies and took us to lunch and made us feel amazing during the test drive. And ultimately, they sold us a piece of garbage that started breaking down a month later. We don't feel good about that because we recognize that that person's sort of pro-social behavior, that person treating me well, that person building rapport with me, it wasn't really for my benefit. And it certainly wasn't them sacrificing anything. It was really them getting over on me. And so, yeah, I feel like that's a huge part of the problem is the people that are the good ones are, and I'm guilty of it too. I worked at a church as a youth leader and community organizer. I did all the good stuff. I worked with people's children. I picked their children up from school. I kept their children out of trouble. I helped improve their grades. I did all, and people loved our church as a result. They loved our church because of all of the great things that we did in that community. But when I look back at that, I do regret that. I do resent that. Now you can compare that to the time I spent working at the Urban League of Essex County, which is a secular, just regular old nonprofit. I did largely a lot of the same work. I don't regret that time at all because there was no catch, there was no manipulation, there was no, oh, I'm giving you this tutoring to draw you into the church. It was, no, we're just giving you tutoring. We give you tutoring, we pay the teachers, we do this through government grants, period, end of story. So yeah, I really do think that we've got to stop that, because what that does is it allows the sucker Christians like my mom and our family members, all the Christians that we like, it makes them instruments of this much more problematic faith. And then again, to be honest, it's the problematic version of the faith that is in power. It's always been the problematic version of the faith that's in power. So I think it's another sort of hopeful delusion that skeptics, leftists, progressives, and then liberal Christians can all get together and form a coalition that's going to stop Christofascism without addressing Christianity. Like that just sounds wild to me.
I I would not hesitate to tell the same Christian that I'm talking to where I'm not saying the negative things about their faith, right? The negative things in the Bible. Actually, you know what? Let me break it down. Because so many Christians haven't read the Bible, the cruelty of the Old Testament often isn't part of their faith. It isn't part of what they believe because they don't even know it's there. Um, that informs how I deal with a lot of people, just so you know. They are surprised when I bring up certain things about selling your child into slavery and that a girl is worth half as much as a boy child, and how, you know, various issues like that that are tough. When I say there is no firmament, it's a metal sky dome, we know there's not. You know, we have space probes that are, what are hundreds of millions of miles away, if not billions of miles away. They didn't hit the dome on the way out, that sort of thing. We have to understand that, again, anyone with faith, there are things that aren't in there that if they had read the entire Bible, they're required to also believe because it would be part of that. So you have to deal with what's up here as well as what's in the Bible. And if that person is just trying to get through the day, I tend to try to meet them where they're at rather than saying, hey, look, you're deceived. This just isn't true. The Bible allows me to pin a standard on that person. And when I see them not meeting it, I can use their own book, which they tell me they believe in, to get them back on track, if that's what I'm trying to do. If I'm just talking to somebody on an airplane who's trying to convert me, my guard is up and my gloves are off. Like, let's do this, buddy. Let's do this, because you are not probably prepared for what I'm about to show you in your own book. You
Yeah,
know,
I would just
there's a
say be
big
careful.
difference.
I don't I get the strategy. And again, for me it's just changing. It's not it's I've done the same thing. I really thought that was a great way to communicate with my Christian friends. I'm just today in August of 2025 feeling differently about it because we're in such a crisis moment. The other thing is my cynicism's through the roof and I just don't believe these people. You know,
Hmm.
I don't envy people that have super close relationships with Christians. My you know my the Christians in my life, it's very my family, it's really intense, but most of the other people, they're just kind of like friends or whatever. Um, what am I getting at? It's hard to convince me about the sincerity of your faith without also convincing me that you were not a fully formed adult. Um, so
That's pretty
one,
harsh.
it is harsh, but that I'm just being honest
Super
with you.
harsh.
I'm again, but again, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to have the courage of my convictions, right? I'm trying to say what I really want, what I really mean, because I'm so resentful that when I was a believer, people didn't say what they really meant to me. First off, a lot of these people, because let me repeat what I said. It's hard for me to buy the sincerity of somebody's faith without also being convinced that they're not a fully formed adult. So first off,
Hmm.
the first part is important. It's hard to convince me of the sincerity of your faith. What do I mean by that? I think these people do know this stuff. I think a lot of this stuff, listen, most Christians don't read the Bible. Sure, I get that.
That's
Um,
true.
most of them haven't read the whole thing or whatever. Okay, fine. So then you can say there's a lot of details in there. They're not aware of this, they're not aware of that. Did you know this? Did you know that? Sure. But there's no way to be in that culture, especially not for a substantial amount of time. Okay, if you converted to Christianity at age 35 because of talking to one of your yoga buddies and you've only been in the church for like 3 months, sure, maybe you're still learning. I doubt it, because again, I don't know what church you can go to for 90 days and not get these things. But it's hard to convince me that there are many Christians who grew up in the faith, have been in it for any substantial period of time, and aren't creationists, that don't understand that the Christian doctrine is literally about a God who created the universe by speaking it into existence. Maybe they haven't read the entire Genesis account, but trust me, there's enough between the songs and the sermons and the small group study or whatever. They damn sure know about
Hmm.
creationism. They know about Noah's Ark. Now, when they say they know about Noah's Ark, they mean there was a flood and there was a boat and God put the animals on it 2 by 2. And then after 40 days, he saved them or whatever and whatever. Okay.
Hmm.
So they know the story. Now, when you hit them with so you realize God killed every living thing on the planet except for 2 of each animal in this one family, they don't, they're not going to put it like that. But again, it's hard to convince me you've been a Christian for any substantial period of time and you don't know the story. You don't know about Adam and Eve, or you don't know that Christians persecute LGBTQ people. And this is what I mean too about a lot of times that those liberal people, they're kind of lying to you, because here's what they're really saying a lot of times. A lot of times what they're really saying is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry these other Christians support those policies. I don't have personal animosity towards you living a different quote unquote lifestyle, because that's how they see it. Um, and they want it to kind of stop there. And that's what we think of as the liberal Christian position. But I think most liberal Christians are not saying the obvious part, which is that they do believe the same faith. They do believe in the same God and the same Bible. And they do believe that it is that God's word that homosexuality is a sin. And so the truth is, they will, if push comes to shove, a lot of them will admit that they either believe it's a sin or understand it to be a sin according to their faith, however they're going to say it so that they don't sound like a jerk. But that's the problem. That is the problem, is that when you're now trying to rely on these people to really get things moving and shaking so we could really change things, they're really only with you so far. Because again, do you think your humanity or your uniqueness is more important to them than their faith, than their God? Do we really think in their heart of hearts, as people who identify as Christians, that they would really go against the word of God to be allies? This is just stuff that, yes, I've tried
let
it like
me
everybody else, but it hasn't worked. And right now in 2025, it just feels like we need a reality check. Go ahead, go
pocket
ahead.
locker. I think it depends on who you're talking to. So some dear friends who are helping out in my house today. Thank you so much. I used to go to my friend Jane's house, who's the mother of my friend Kelly, for holiday dinners, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving. And one of the people who would often show up, and I looked forward to seeing him all the time, was Father Tom. Father Tom was an Episcopal priest. He's now retired. And sometimes when pretty much everybody was done eating and it was me, Father Tom, and this guy Earl, we talk about religious matters. And Father Tom kept his faith the whole time. But he did mention something that was beautiful to me. When I mentioned some of the cruelty of the Old Testament, he said, my God wouldn't do that. Now, I want you to know this man preached from the Bible, right? His interpretation of God, and we can get granular with it from guests from different shows we've all seen over the years who talk about how the Old Testament God, there's multiple Old Testament gods known as the chief God of the Old Testament. It's clearly not the same. Jesus' God is clearly not the same as the God of the Old Testament. But anyway, his beliefs in his belief system, his God is not doing violence to people. But I could point out chapter and verse. For him, the God he believes in is above that.
I would laugh in his face.
And
Sounds like a narcissistic coward. I gotta be honest, I would
well,
I
well, well
would
hold on, hold on, hold on,
laugh in
hold
his
on,
face.
hold on. That is true probably of billions of Christians. As I pointed out earlier, they often consider their faith to be a personal relationship. So I'm sure everybody watching this has had the following problem. The person you're in love with fails to see you as you are sometimes, and they view you as an idealized version of you that lacks some of the flaws that you wrestle with. And it's frustrating
And do you know
because you
that
need them. What?
that's literally a telltale sign of narcissistic abuse. That is the pattern of dealing with the narcissist, is that they love bomb you, they idealize you, and as soon as they inevitably get to know you and get in an intimate relationship with you, and you turn out to actually be a real human being, they start to devalue you and discard you. So and it is exactly the same thing that happens in religion. It is exactly the same thing they
Okay,
do, right? The love
but
bombing
okay, then
and
then
the
then
community and the cookouts,
keep
and
this
then
comment up there. Keep the comment up. I'm sorry, but I just want to finish what I was
go
saying.
guide, guide, guide. Yeah, we're fine.
You have to understand that people aren't all on the same level. It's not uniform. It says it should be, it's not. That's not something that's going to be achieved. And we know it's not going to be achieved because it's simply not true.
What
You know, the Bible has things that are out and out falsehoods. And we've discovered this over time. They were known to be false at the time certain portions of the Bible were written, and people left it in there anyway, right? We know there have been corrections made. Most Bibles today have footnotes that go unread saying, look, we have other manuscripts that say the opposite of this, or we kept this in there, but some manuscripts leave it out. You can find ample YouTube videos of ministers and individuals saying this is a false text. The people who made this Bible took out the following verses and they took out this chapter, that chapter. Yeah. But what they don't acknowledge is that the older manuscripts, the oldest ones we have, leave those things out. So maybe they were never intended to be in there by the original authors. But that's not how they see it, right? They want to be offended. They want to believe that their precious faith is somehow being ripped away by people who don't love God and His Word as much as they do. But they're wrong.
That's the
It's
problem right
somebody,
now.
like you said, somebody wants the truth.
The problem with the problem in America is that the people that are ruining the world are doing so on behalf of their faith. They are uniquely religiously motivated and religiously indoctrinated. And the problem is that the opposition to those people loves God even more. I couldn't have put it any better. What's to happen is the opposition is supposed to be abandoning God. The opposition is supposed to look at that and say, did they get that MAGA? They got MAGA from the same Bible? Ooh, yeah. Well, I don't love God more than enough to watch the world burn. So if this Bible can produce this MAGA, maybe hey, maybe this isn't the movement for me. No, they didn't do that. Instead, we're the true Christians and we represent the true Jesus and we represent the God of love. And so it's like that's my frustration. That's the title of this stream, right? Closeted uh Christians on my right, closeted Christianity on my left, and I did that wrong. All right, but no, I that to me is the thing. All right, let's read this comment here. Bethany
Well,
said,
okay. Go ahead,
uh,
Bethany's comment,
all right,
please.
a lot of liberal Christians are also still believers in original sin slash the need for salvation, which means they are still Christian supremacists, even if they're quote unquote more inclusive Christian supremacists. I could not agree more. I I think that we're really in that whole thing. Like, it comes out of Judaism and the whole notion of being a chosen people. I think most Islamists have the same problem. Most of the world's major religions have this problem of the supremacy, and I don't understand for the life of me why atheists don't take that to be more of a serious threat, more of a realization of as long as this Christianity thing is normalized, we will never, ever achieve any sense of equality and fullness of expression as non-believers. Because to maintain the fairy tale of religion necessitates demonizing and persecuting non-believers. It's so obvious to me that infidels and heathens and whoever else, they're openly trying to oppress us. It's so clear to me. But anyway, I'm gonna let my one black friend get in here.
Okay, it wouldn't be me if I didn't read a verse from the Bible. Revelation, and there's a better one than this, but this is just the one I found easily. 11:18. So we talked about good beliefs and bad beliefs. Um, there are people actively repealing laws about vehicle emission standards and EPA standards. Okay. This is something the Bible says. Okay. This is Revelation 11:18. The nations raged, but your wrath came, and the time for the dead to be judged. Excuse me. Yeah. And the time for the dead to be judged. And for rewarding your servants, the prophets and saints, and those who fear your name, both small and great, and for destroying the destroyers of the earth. So we could say that a lot of conservative Christians want these EPA laws and regulations repealed so that they could pollute on a bigger scale. But here it is in their own book saying people who destroy the people who do things like that are going to be rewarded. Elsewhere in Revelation, it says if you are one of the destroyers of the earth, you will be punished. Now, this is the same book. I realize it's at the end. I guess Revelation has stuff that scares people in it. It's not scary to me, but there it is in their own text in more than one place, and it's being ignored. Again, you can use the faithful. You can use them as tools to get what you want. Even this, what do we say? They go right to the front of the Bible. The earth endureth, right? The earth's going to take care of itself. God's going to take care of the earth. Right here, this is telling me that people can destroy the earth. Well, which one is it? And I got a second one to back this up. Which one of the three is it? We clearly see signs of how our planet can be damaged by human carelessness. So I think we owe it to the earth to look after. I can find you a
But
verse for that
again, but
too.
again, now, but again, but that I think that's insane because I think Christianity is a death pact that is looking forward to the end of the planet. I think this is like going over the fire safety plan with arsonists. That's what this. I'm serious. I'm
Talking
serious.
like you. That's funny. Um, I, I, I used to think that Joe Biden had a bit of this in him, where he was hoping that he could do things that would provoke the return of Jesus, which is why he was so supportive of Israel bombing the crap out of Gaza, because now all the nations are going to gather in Megiddo
but that
and come against
is.
Israel. And finally, Jesus will come back, and I can see him being a little pissed off. Guys, I was on the toilet when he started all this crap. I didn't get to finish reading my comic book, and now I have to bring about the end of the world, which sucks because I wasn't done doing my things. I still had stuff on my list. Right? Can people really force the God of everything, if there is one,
But
to come out of his?
this is really what's happening right now, and that is so much of the justification of our support for Israel and why people are okay with it. It's, I mean, it's scary. Let me read this comment because I want to,
Yeah,
because
keep Vic.
it'll get us back to where it goes.
Let me read Vic Let's comment, if you
Oh, okay,
will.
go ahead. Yeah.
And thank you, Vic Lit. Thank you so much. I 100% remember making up the kind of God that I thought would be best aligned with my principles. The only teaching I heard was God equals perfect father. So I made up what I thought was the perfect father.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And look, I did the same thing. I was an evolutionary biologist. I thought, you know, God used evolution as the means of creation, and I was super pro LGBTQ, and I thought a lot of even other faiths really they actually worship the same God, so they also had relationships and their religions were even fine because they were their own systematic theologies that God could honor. Look, y'all, and again, I just think that as we grow and change, we mature, and we should, again, as thinking as an evolutionary biologist, we should demand the same for the world around us. Because if we're not adapting, if we're not changing, we're gonna perish. And I really do believe, largely due to science, we're at a time when not only is religion not the best tool for us to be using anymore, we can really see its harm, and we really have a far better alternative. Um, but wait, but I don't get too sidetracked. So this comment, because I think this comment gets back to your story with Father Good Guy. Um,
Father Tom. Yeah.
the um and again, 3, 4, 5 years ago, total different interaction between me and Father Tom. But today, the
Hmm.
conversation between me and Father Tom starts with me laughing in his face and trying to get real with him and hoping that that goes well. And if it doesn't, it ends up with me cursing him out. Um, because
He
what it
wouldn't
is,
deserve that, just so you know.
so then hopefully he would receive the laughter well, right? Because it's like, look, man, I get that people are trying to be comfortable, but what are we talking about? If somebody comes to me and says I'm a Christian, but then tells me all the horrible things, that's not my God. To be honest with you, I'm laughing and trying. I'm laughing because I'm trying not to curse him out, and I'm trying not to curse him out because I would be like, how dare you insult me like this? Because well, a
Um,
lot of times what happens is we let I'm a non-believer now. So right, so when I'm in conversation with believers, they own the believer space. But the reality is I spent most of my life as a believer, and I would be insulted now for somebody that's a Christian to say that that's not their God. That is your God. Like where do you think Christianity comes from? And even Jesus believed that he was a Jew. He believed in the God of the Old Testament. And he said that the Old Testament law was still the law.
not a jot or a tittle
So these
will perish from the
so
law.
this is
Hmm.
that is exactly the type of thing we can't tolerate, in my opinion, in this moment. And again,
Well,
maybe Father Tom 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been cool. But today it would be, Father Tom, it's 2025. I need you to look around and read the room and recognize that all of these terribly oppressive things, Christians are doing this to us. And what you are doing is sidestepping any accountability that needs to be had so that you can remain comfortable with this faith that you just made up, which by the way is it's so much worse when these Christians do it. The people who should be saying that's not my God are the spiritual weirdos. It should be the spiritual weirdos and the deists. No, I'm serious, because the spiritual weirdest and the spiritual weirdos and the deists, if you're a deist, you just say God started it and left it alone or whatever, right? And so then you get to
that's the
fill in the
safest position
right.
ever
And so then you get to fill in
for faith in a God. Yeah.
right. So then what that God does now or how that God works with you now is totally left up to your interpretation, right? Or if you're spiritual, then yeah, you can make up whatever God you'd like, and you can say my God is Tony the Tiger, and Tony the Tiger loves everybody, and I can't disagree with that because I don't know the theology of Tony the Tiger. But when you are a
These are great.
Christian, when you are a Christian and you tell us, oh, that's not my God, you are just lying to my face. And you're lying to the face of people who inherited the same Christianity you did. Some of us are like, I come from 5 generations of ministers. Some of us worked at churches. Some of us studied to be apologists or studied to be a minister or worked in
Hmm.
churches or were, part of the ministry team or whatever it was. And now you got the audacity to tell us that the God, all the big bad things that happen in the Bible, that's not really the God of Christianity. Man, I wish you would try to tell me that nonsense in 2025. It was a
Okay.
different conversation, man.
Okay. So here we got some comments we need to put up. Crystal says
All
Mike
right, let me
Johnson went
see.
to Israel to slay. It says Fred heifers. I know what she means. Red heifers
Red
to
heifers,
usher
yeah,
in
yeah.
the apocalypse. This is happening. Okay. Some of you may recall, probably months ago, I said with all this stuff is doing, attacking other countries, I said I'm here for it. Let them do it. Let them do it, because what it's gonna prove is that all the nations aren't going to gather in Megiddo and come against Israel. Jesus isn't going to come back with legions of angels and start wiping them out, right? These people didn't know what an armored tank was. They didn't know what a F-22 fighter jet was. There's all this stuff they didn't know when the book of Revelation was written. There's all this stuff they didn't know, where Amos, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, they didn't know about this stuff we have today. So, no, they're not right. They're wrong. And you can kill all the red heifers you want and not make Angus steak burgers, but Jesus ain't coming. He's not. He's not. He's not getting off the toilet to come down here because he's not on the toilet up there.
Okay,
It's
but
not
here's the thing.
happening.
This is
But
the to me, this is the cruelty of continuing to reinforce the main character syndrome of religions that have no basis in reality. I don't think you'd be able. I don't think you. I don't think you mean that. I don't think you could do it. I think that's a. I think it's nice rhetorically. You know, it's a fun argument. Hey, let them have it, and then we'll see what's really what. But the only type of people that really want to say, let's see what happens, is Jim Bob and Andrew Wilson and other fascist right wing Christian nationalists. Why? Because I'm not willing to slay a single mouse, and I hate mice, over this religious bullshit. And I certainly know the only way to establish the conditions that these religious nut jobs would need established so that we could trigger the win condition. Let's talk about gaming. So we could trigger the win condition of Jesus's second coming, okay, would involve the displacement, destruction, and slaughter of so many people that it shows exactly why we can't play these games with these people. And here's the thing too that's really weighing on me, y'all. The reason I'm so like this lately is because I think we have even stronger obligations than they do. If you're a white wing nut job, you're too far gone, you're off the reservation, but you're literally trying to bring about the apocalypse, you're a threat to humanity. All these people on the left, I got a problem with them too, because again, they're just endorsing the same thing. But apparently, I at least have to go along with the idea that they're sincere, that they truly do identify as Christians, and they truly do worship Jesus and believe the Bible is basic instructions before leaving Earth. Okay. Well, if they think that, guess what? My black ass doesn't. And as a non-believer, yeah, I don't think any of y'all have the right. I think the idea of chosen people, salvation, holy land, I think all that shit is psychotic. And the same way, family values is just code for patriarchy and bigotry towards LGBTQ folks. You know, all of this chosen people, chosen lands, holy land, God's plan, da 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 da, is just coded for genocide and you know, becoming colonial settlers or whatever, which ultimately is literally leads to that AI trope that Trump sent out, where we're gonna, you know, build Trump Plaza casinos on the Gaza Strip.
Gaza, yeah, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
So to me, those of us that are really secular people have to really see what's happening in this moment right now and say, nah, we got to stop playing with Christianity. We got to stop playing with religion. And yes, and I'm sorry, but for me, yeah, it's that does mean being willing to get uncomfortable with these really nice Christians, because I have to be honest with myself, and that's to say, I don't see how we can really stop this thing without dealing with the fact that Christianity isn't true. And I'm really sorry that means all these nice Christians are going to have to get uncomfortable. But honestly, I don't feel that bad about it because, again, if you convince me that you're sincere, you've also convinced me that you fail to function as a full adult. And there are a lot of hard lessons I had to learn in life. And I don't think I'm necessarily all the way always a high functioning adult. But I had to learn the lessons about I might be wrong. I had to learn the lessons about, needing good evidence for things. I had to learn the lessons of having problematic associations. I had to learn the lessons about the consequences of putting my loyalty and my relationship with people before my values. I had to learn the lessons about the consequences of overlooking abuse and overlooking the oppression of other people to maintain comfortable. So really, all we've been doing is sparing these people from maturing. And
Hmm.
right now, it's like, look, unfortunately, the world's going to hell in a handbasket in real time right now. And Christians are constantly pouring fuel on the fire. So I too wish this was not the case. I wish we did not find ourselves in this state today as we do, but we do. And so standing on the sidelines, clapping about Jesus on Sunday morning is just not a good look right now for me. I do want to review their clip, but I'm gonna let you go ahead and say whatever, and then we'll
Oh
try
yeah,
to.
yeah. There's a clip, right?
There's a
Um,
clip. It's not too long. It's not a long clip.
well, I obviously we're both saying important things. We're both saying things that matter about this. Our approaches are different, and I think you make some good points, um, especially your last one about maturity. In a way, it's a comment that is sobering and hurtful. Sobering to me, right? Because my position is often, let me support the good I see. Well, that also does mean to some degree that I am turning a blind eye to all the stuff that I don't know that that person is believing about that faith, right? A person may very well be kind and generous and loving and sweet and all the Jesus stuff. They're ticking every box that's possible in an American society, except for selling all they have, right? Maybe they're doing all of that, but that person also is anti-LGBTQ. Well, what about the loving your neighbor part? No, I do love them. They're just going to, and we've all heard the end of that sentence out of people. God hates them. I don't hate them. I I think it's hard to view that as a position that I could never hold that position. I just couldn't. I am lucky enough to have people in my life from diverse backgrounds, and I realize the value of that, right? I don't have an issue at all, not even a little bit, with a trans person. But if I met someone from one of these countries where people could still own slaves and they had one, I I would be jumping across the table saying, "What the heck is wrong with you? Why would you own another human being?" I'd be up in arms about it. But with the average believer, well, the Bible condones it. It was my aunts, my own aunts. It was different back then. And I could pretty much say what I want to in my reply, right? They've all heard me curse. They've all heard me, be insulting about this issue or that issue, about to this person or that person, or about this person or that person. They haven't heard me do that to them. But I would have to say, you are utterly wrong-headed to think that it was ever okay. I don't give a damn what the book says. I don't.
But they
The book
do.
is
They
wrong.
they they do. And I
There
hate to
are
break it to you,
people,
they
there are,
think.
and I would love to talk to a Sean
But
McDowell
hang on. They
or
don't.
a,
But even most of
go
these
ahead.
people, they don't actually think slavery is wrong. Let's be clear about this. What they
Some of them
think,
don't. I don't know if
what they
most, but
what
some of
they
them
think
don't.
is what they think is God they know what was in the Bible, and they justify that by basically saying God had to speak to those people in the cultural lingo of their time or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
now they just see it as the social cultural time of now is that slavery is unacceptable. But if you then put those two things together, what they're really ultimately saying is that slavery is okay if God endorses it. And essentially, God had endorsed it when people were cool with it. Now, people aren't cool with it, right? So they're not really saying slavery is wrong biblically. They think slavery is wrong socially. What they're really saying is slavery is now socially unacceptable, but they don't really think slavery is immoral, because then they'd have to admit that something their God did was fundamentally immoral, and they can't admit that. So they give us cultural relativism then and cultural relativism now, because at least that's consistent.
I think we have to be charitable and take it on a case by case basis, a person by person basis,
Yeah,
because
I just
you would
mean
agree they don't all
overall.
believe
And
the same. They don't all believe the same way about that issue, and we can bring up equivalent issues where they don't all believe the
sure,
same.
but there's
Could I
millions of
could I
them.
take
Yeah.
G Man? Could I take the Christian G Man and say, okay, you're telling me slavery isn't wrong. So if I could buy you a first class ticket to a country where there's still slavery, where it's still legal, could I trade your life for one of theirs? And I walk up to the slave owner and say, look, I got this volunteer. He's from the New York area. He talks quickly, but he looks like he's probably still, got a lot of life left in him. Let me swap him out for somebody you got in your country. One of your slaves that you own. I'll trade you for him. Would G-Man do that? Could I
No, but
trade him? And
that's
could I
the
start
laugh.
taking Christians in this country and sending them to other countries
But
saying, hey,
again,
we're
that's
going to bring those slaves and put them up in your house and all this stuff? What?
don't assume that they're not. It's not that they're dumb, but they get that's a clever little cute thought experiment. But they understand that the reality is that this thing is inextricably tied to white supremacy. So they know that, or at least in their minds, they know that they're not the ones who are going to end up slaves, and they know the laws will be rewritten to make sure that when they have that type of debt, they don't end up in, it's that's the whole game. All right, let's check out this clip. It is a fun
Kankles
one.
McTaco Tits, who I've nicknamed Kanks for expediency. Kanks tried to give a microphone a blowjob on the campaign trail. He has a cult that's deeply attracted to him, yet they probably need him to be beefed up. So his photographs are constantly photoshopped, and then they're, disseminated through the cult. So this headline will come as zero surprise to anyone that the Daily Mail, of all places, is reporting that a secret gay sex scandal explodes in Republican Party as closeted congressman who's engaged to a woman is accused of sordid double life. Let's read the excerpt. A secret gay sex scandal has rocked the Republican Party. I want to remind you that's the MAGA party.
Right.
As married men and a sitting member of Congress have been accused of sleeping with male escorts, even as their party thunders about traditional family values. In candid interviews, young, muscular sex workers in Washington, D.C. described a booming business fueled by Republican MAGA officials, from state lawmakers and high-powered lobbyists to federal government staffers and at least one congressman. The revelations come as the GOP faces renewed scrutiny over its hypocrisy on homosexuality, publicly championing the traditional nuclear family while privately indulging in the very behavior many Republicans denounce. But that's
All right, we're gonna let them go and talk about this, but I just want to
Hmm.
acknowledge that this is, to me, a nothing burger, because this is just another day that ends in Y, and I think it'd be foolish for us to think that there's any sort of serious scrutiny of the GOP over this, or that there's any real concerns over this. We need to stay focused on what's going on right now, and honestly, what we face in the future, such as it looks like they're positioning themselves to maybe overturn the Obergefell decision, which would destroy same-sex and other marriage equality rights in this country. The thing that's just so interesting to me about all of this is, again, that fact, the fact that it's just, this is such basic stuff, and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to do this whole thing. We're going to talk about the sort of right-wing Christo-fascism behind all of this, but we're going to do so in a way that makes sure that we don't ever say anything that might make Christians uncomfortable or talk about whether or not this religion is true. And so that's the problem to me. Our resistance, our opposition to these people just feels very hollow, because it feels like we're just not willing to go there. We're just not willing to go there.
It's not all. Pop it up. One DC-based male escort described having a 2-year relationship with a sitting Midwestern congressman who, during that period, had multiple serious girlfriends. The 29-year-old sex worker with the boy next door looks described dinners at downtown DC eatery Butterworth's, a popular MAGA haunt, followed by late nights. He told the Daily Mail on the condition that neither man was identified. The unnamed lawmaker is closeted, cautious, and carried the weight of a public image that left no room for who he really was, the escort said. It's gotten difficult to ignore the dissonance between the man I know in private and the votes he casts publicly. He said the Republican is now engaged to a woman. Last one, another escort, a 35-year-old with chiseled features and a bodybuilder's physique, was also candid. He described officials in the federal government, a state senator, and lobbyists among his clients. And so, for those of you that listen to the real news, you would know that Grindr crashed at the RNC. When everybody had maxi pads on their ears, and were singing God Bless America and bopping around with Kanks.
All right, if you guys don't know exactly what she's talking about, so Grindr is the gay version of Tinder, online dating app, and their servers crashed during the Republican National Convention because of the increase in activity. And then the maxi pads over the ear thing was reference to when Trump got hit with the glass during the assassination attempt, and had to wear that big bandage on his ear, or he didn't think he had to, chose to wear that big ass bandage on his ear.
No.
You know, they were all wearing these huge bandages in solidarity.
Is contagious.
Yeah. All right. So that's what was going on there. I got to be honest with you though. It just, the whole thing, it's like, this is what I mean. It's like, is this the analysis we're at? Where like, it's like, hey, did you know, like, the right wing, they're like closeted? I mean, it's just, this is just rampant. It's who they are. It's what we there's so many of these exposures, but that's kind of what I mean. It's like, at some point, when are we going to talk about the fact that it just, why do we still have to tolerate this? This is
well, we could stone them, but that would be illegal because it's murder now.
No, let me put my problem this way. Part of the problem with privileged white people being the I call them the thought leaders, but basically the ones who are hosting and have the platforms that are used to frame the public narrative, right? And so it's important. We want these platforms to grow. We need there to be more leftist progressive voices, and that is happening, right? Midas Touch is the biggest podcast. That's a big deal because it means they passed Joe Rogan, which means the biggest podcast is on the left as opposed to being on the right. That's a good thing, and we want more of that. But part of the problem is that reinforces the privilege, because now you create a class of people who don't have real jobs. Their jobs is to come online and talk about issues in the news with the world. Okay, fine, cool. But now you get so comfortable because so many of the things you talk about and you deal with don't impact you or affect you or otherwise cause you to be disruptive. And so it's like the people who bring these stories to us, I hate to say this, but they have gotten so comfortable with, yeah, Christianity leads people to hate LGBTQ people, and hey, then a lot of the actual right wingers, they're like closeted about it, and so they just keep crusading against queer people in the name of Jesus. Oh, and I'm a Jesus believer too. It's fine, whatever. Like it's just it's just weird. That's all. It's just weird that I don't know why. I don't know why, but we're not motivated to say, hey, I think this isn't true. And honestly, it makes me feel like we're just in an abusive relationship with Christianity. And we're just stuck in this abusive relationship. And there's only a few of us that are really willing to call it out for the abusive relationship that it really is. And then we get ostracized because everybody else is still so themselves stuck on the mask and so afraid of these people that they're more uncomfortable with the people that will call it out than they are with the actual problematic behaviors in people themselves. And that's what it really feels like we're at. We're really at a moment, and there is a shorthand for this. We say people hate liberals more than they hate fascists. But that's kind of the flavor of the soup.
That's where we are in the United States of America.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
They all.
Go ahead.
that's a pretty powerful statement. I think a lot of people are happy to participate in the fascism because they don't know what it is. Or they think, well, I guess it's like one of those movies where the hero bails out of the car just before it crashes into the enemy, and they think they can do that safely, as opposed to saying,
Yeah.
you know what, there's got to be a better way. And someone's fist beating up on society isn't necessarily the way it gets done. There's bound to be some sort of educational means or a peaceful means that will reach people. However, I don't mind saying this. I hate that I have to say it. People have become so gullible that they'll believe just about any darn thing they're told and not be bothered to check it because it satisfies their need for oppression, or it satisfies their need to be afraid,
I feel
and
like
or it satisfies their need for
go ahead.
shame or shaming someone.
I feel like I'm
Mhm.
starting to see a really effective path. It's just people won't take it. We just need to. It's like a twofold thing. One, you just have to tell people they're wrong, and then essentially get willing to be dismissive of them. Like, I mean, at some point, it's like it's just laughable. Like, listen, we evolved, folks. We evolved. Like we know we can literally explain the origin of our species, y'all. It's ridiculous to think that we're created. Ridiculous. And there's almost no major religion with a notion of God that anybody cares about that isn't the creator. Like, I'm sure you can give me all sorts of definitions of gods that aren't created, and I'm just gonna tell you up front, I don't give a shit. When I say God, I'm talking almost by definition as the creator. And if you look up the definition of God, you will get the definition I'm speaking of. So we literally know as a fact, it is literally the most well-supported theory in the history of science that we were not created. So it's done. We know how our solar system was formed. You know, now you could keep giving me these God of the Gap things, but I'm so not interested. We know enough to know it is utter foolishness. Oh my goodness. Happy birthday, Ember. Quick side note. Happy birthday, Ember. Happy birthday, beautiful. And many, many more, of course. Hopefully we can catch up soon. But hope you're doing good things and treating yourself and having a little special day. I think that's what birthdays are for. You know, it comes a bit weird to do crazy birthday stuff on everybody like every year. I got a big one coming. We get a big one coming up, you know, those decades or whatever, you know, do something. But every birthday is like a great excuse to just have a self-indulgent you day. You know what I mean? You know, hey, it's my birthday. Ain't nobody gonna celebrate it. But yeah.
Be sure to give yourself more than one per year.
Do all your favorite things. Yeah, you definitely should do more than one per year. All right, look, let's let them roll.
Left,
yeah, we got to wrap it up.
They all got in Grindr. Yeah, they all want to go secretly do gay stuff and then be horrible, awful piece of shit hypocrites during the day and praise Jesus and vote all of this hate, anti-gay shit, while at night they're going to do gay stuff with male escorts.
Well, and here's the deal. It didn't crash just once. It crashed 2 times. And here's the thing. We have been sitting in these chairs from jump saying, if you're talking about how anti-gay you are all the time and how strong your family values are, 100% you're closeted. And here's the thing. I couldn't narrow it down. When you're reading this, I'm thinking, okay, who could it be? Because we know, I mean, Laura Loomer outed Lindsey Graham. So we know, but he's on the East Coast. So I'm thinking, is somebody on the East Coast think Louisiana is Midwestern? Like, I don't know. It could be so many people.
Well, I mean, there's no question. This was a congressman, not a senator.
Oh, okay.
That they were talking about. And so there's some sleuthing that can be done. We're too busy filming these iHip Newses to do it, but I believe in you, patriots and gaytriots, especially the gaytriots.
100%.
I believe that the loud and proud gaytriots that listen to this here very podcast every day will get to the deep, dark bottom of this. Here's what we know. Midwestern congressman votes MAGA, is MAGA, has many serious girlfriends, and is now engaged to a woman. You guys, cast a net, report in the comments section. Let's pontificate and figure this out. And here's the thing. In a normal political climate, I would have empathy for the struggle and the plight of young men and women that are born into crazy religious families, and they've had to suppress who they are, and they hate themselves, and they've gone to the pulpit, and it's this hellfire damnation. The gays are our number one agenda. We're against gay marriage. That's our number one thing. And I have empathy for a young gay person that might feel closeted and scared and might have a lot of self-hatred. When we get to this point where you're this brazen, where you're actively voting against something that you're secretly doing, and there's this many of them, I say fuck them. I am so sick of the beating up on the LGBTQ plus community by white Christians. It is abhorrent. It has been decades long, and MAGA has brought it back up. They talk about, oh, with these drag queens, we're so upset about these drag queens. I have breaking news. JD Vance is a drag queen. There are photographs of it. He wasn't a very good one, but he still goes out and drag with the smoky eye. And so Donald Trump wears, no drag queen would ever dare not blend their makeup.
Well, of course.
But like, this is the biggest drag administration I've ever seen. I haven't even started on Kristi Noem, who's now doing an arts and craft project down at the border, painting the fence black. And I'm like, wait till they find out about gloves. You guys, this hypocrisy.
All right, I'm gonna stop there. Y'all should check it out, just because I want us to be able to talk about this real quick, and then I know we gotta wrap. She's sitting next to a white Christian, and
Someone
that
in
white
the comments. Sorry to interrupt. Someone in the
you're
comments
good.
said she deconverted. That woman is also known as Pumps, but I think her name is Angie. Pumps stands for Princess Pumpkin Tina. I watched a lot of iHip news, so but go on, Apocalypse.
Who
please.
deconverted?
The woman with the glasses.
I thought she was still a Christian.
That's what someone in the comments said. Our comments
said that she deconverted. I think she deconverted from the. Oh, she's not a Christian at all anymore. Okay, that's good. So yeah, this whole thing that's good. Thanks for letting me know, AR. Okay, so she's not a Christian anymore. That's good. Yeah. So the thing is, we've gotta, because it's the same thing. If she's a former Christian, that's cool. Like that's good. Same point though. We gotta be willing to call out that this stuff is not true. So I'm gonna talk quickly about both of their comments. She's the deconvert. What's her name? Pumps? Is that
yeah,
Pumps?
or I think her name is Angie. I don't remember for sure. She just usually is called Pumps.
Yeah, I listen to them a lot, but I don't know their names. So Pumps is said, oh, if you are this way where you're obsessed with the LGBTQ and all of this stuff, then that's your top priority, then you're closeted or whatever. Okay. It's fun. It's fun. These stories are fun. Pointing out your enemy's hypocrisy is usually sort of a good time for some reason. But you don't have to be closeted or weird. This is the obsession. The obsession with queer people has always been there. It's in the book, and this is part of why I said what I said earlier about us needing to. We got to stop using the Bible for cultural currency, because we're asking people to be far more nuanced with it than they are in reality. The truth is, if you grew up, and I almost want to say with American Christianity, but it's really not true, because you have to remember our Christianity is very dominant. It's very deeply connected to the way white Christianity is practiced in Europe. Maybe it's not as extreme, but they're theologically and dogmatically they're almost identical. It's not like they have different doctrine over there. And then if you think about the missionary zeal and how missionaries have spread Christianity over the planet, it's like everyone's really dealing with this. And this obsession with queer people comes from the scripture. It comes from people believing God's will is that this is an abomination. It is unnatural. It is one of the most terrible, sinful things you can be doing. There's all sorts of commands about it. And God thinks these people should be destroyed. And people who believe are loyal to their God above all else. That is the problem. So it's almost to me getting to a place where it's irresponsible to pretend that it is some strange perversion of Christianity to be obsessed with queer people when it's actually just basic Christianity. It's what we all grew up with. It's what we all, and we all know that the people who scream about religious freedom and the right to practice their religious beliefs whenever they want to, we all know that when you see those conversations, bet on Black every time, because literally 9 out of 10 times that person wants to talk about why it's wrong to be gay, or they don't want to bake cakes for gay people, or they don't want to sign marriage licenses for gay people. And the other few times it's not that, it's some other form of bigotry, like, you know, women should really be homemakers, and making women career women is turning them away from their God-given purpose in life. Like, we already know it's sitting on some bullshit, but we just keep up with it. And then what she said is like, I have empathy. I have all this empathy for people who, you know, you're raised in this culture and you have this sort of self-hatred that causes you to be closeted and you can't really be yourself. But at the same time, now when you're in a position of power, she's ready to say, F off. The reality is, again, sweetheart, I'm gonna need you to put those two things together. Right now, those people are in power. And so we need to actively resist this religion because it is the source of their power. It is the means they use to rise to power, and it is the framework through which their power operates. And then on top of that, we can never truly intervene and make it so that those unfortunate young people that are the victims of this indoctrination don't themselves become the people in power doing the oppression, because you won't tell them that the motive behind the messages they're receiving isn't true. So we're perpetuating the victimhood here, because the way to stop the victimhood is to go into the communities where people keep saying, hey, God hates you if you're queer, and saying that God isn't even real.
Mm-hmm.
And so until you can show me that God even exists, I have zero tolerance for you telling these people there's anything wrong with them, no matter who they are, for whatever reason it happens to be. But you
I think
can't
that's a good
do
starting
that.
place. Prove to me, before I can join you, you have to prove to me it's real. And do it right now.
Yeah. And then the thing is, if they're not gonna do that, then you leave them alone, you ostracize them. Because in other words, they have to face the social consequences. And when we move on, right, that's the thing that really gets people to change. Think about even why so many churches try to pretend to be pro-LGBTQ. They do that because society started to scowl so much at them, and we looked down at them, and then we left them behind. We started to give those rights that should have always been there. We started to put those rights in place. We treated the people who we knew in our lives that we loved and cared about. We said we're going to treat them like people we love and care about, and we just don't even care anymore what they have to say. That's when they start to change. Hasn't really gone all the way there, but at least we can move in the right direction. Same thing with racism. If it was up to the churches, we'd still be dealing with legal segregation. And church is literally the most segregated place in the damn country on Sunday. But the rest of us moved on and integrated and did what we had to do. And I think we need to do the same thing with religion, is to just say that stuff isn't true. I don't know why so many of these people are still in cults, but the rest of us are going to move on. And then eventually what happens is enough of us do that, that all of a sudden it isn't so cool to be in the cult. Right now, it's still really cool to be in the cult. And then even if you're not in the cult, you treat the cult members like it's still cool to be in the cult. It's time for those of us that aren't in the cult anymore to say, guess what? It's not cool to be in a cult, and Christianity is a cult.
And with that,
thank y'all so much for tuning in. It's been a long one, but a good one. Thanks so much, my one black friend. Thanks to the mods and all the viewers. Hit us up on Discord if you want to stay in touch, or gather if you want to come hang out in our virtual headquarters. Otherwise, be good to yourselves.